Hi guys, my name is Destiny and I'm Hot Girls Lash and I'm an educator with Artistry. And today I have Angela with me.
Hi guys.
We're going to be doing a little tutorial for you guys. I specialize in wet sets and they become so popular lately. And I think every lash tech should know how to do this set, regardless if your clients are asking for it or not. So today we're going to be doing a wispy wet set. And what that means is we're just going to be using a bunch of different lengths and we're going to keep one diameter throughout the whole set. We're not going to complicate that, but we will be using a couple curls. So it can get tricky, but I have a way to make it a little bit simple. Have you ever had lash extensions before?
Yes, I would say probably like 4 or 5 times. I usually get them for like special occasions, like a holiday trip, a birthday event, stuff like that, or like a, birthday party, stuff like that. But I don't genuinely stay consistent with them. So I am very particular when I get them, like kind of what shape I like, how long I like them, the darkness and everything. I usually go for kind of like a full volume set. But I feel like that's a little harder to maintain if you're not properly taking care of them.
Yes.
So I'm trying to go a little less full and a little more natural, but I like the length and everything in the cat eye effect, if that makes sense.
Cat eye.
Yes.
We can definitely do a cat eye. So Angela here is a perfect example on how we can do a cat eye on somebody who normally cannot hold one. So what we can do is manipulate the mapping through lengths and curls to give her that good cat eye, even though her eye technically can't hold it. So with wet sets, you can use any type of lash fiber, but all of them are different and we must know what we're using, right? So I have 3 collections here from Artistry, and this is the matte collection, ultra dark, and then the standard collection. And all of them are so amazing in their own ways, but they do have different uses if you really know how these lashes work. So the standard collection is pretty versatile. You can use this with almost any type of lash set. Really easy to fan out. They're really nice for wet sets. I honestly love them. But the matte collection, on the other hand, is more porous, so it does have a better surface area for retention, and it does give that nice matte look, which is great for mascara sets. So the ultra dark collection, on the other hand, actually has 2 layers of lashes on the strip, and it gives that ultra dark color and fluffiness. So what I love about these is for them to be fanned out, but they do look really, really good on those fluffier wet sets. Some girls like a softer type of look, but some girls love that harsh mascara look, putting bonder on the lashes and everything. So this is my client Angela, and you can clearly see she does not have the most perfect ideal eye shape for a cat eye, but we can actually manipulate it with a curl that I love to use. It's called L curl, and this curl really accentuates the eye without drooping, and we love that. So if we just manipulate lengths, right here is her longest length on her eye. If we manipulate the length and we keep that to a 10 or 11 millimeters and we jump up at the end, it will give us a perfect cat eye by mixing curls in there. So over here on her eye, she actually is not descending at all. So if we do want to keep a straighter curl on there, it would actually blend in perfectly. So it does look like Angela cannot hold a cat eye at all because her eye is descending, but her natural lashes are actually straight. If they were more downturned, we would need a sharper curl, possibly like M curl or LU curl, to really give her that lift, because we don't want to leave anything drooping at the end of this set. So my signature mapping for wet sets, especially wispy wet sets, actually includes a simple method. A 2 millimeter difference from the top layer and then the bottom layer lashes. And when I say the bottom layer, I also mean the middle layer and the top layer, because we will not be lashing every single top layer lash for spikes, and we will not be lashing every single middle layer lash for spikes. So what I like to do with this mapping to break it down is to just cut it in half. Okay, we're gonna worry about the top layer in one section and worry about the bottom layer and the base in another section. So the top layer, when looking at my client, I would for sure do 9 millimeters in her inner corner. She has a lot of room. We don't want to do anything too short, but since I said 9 millimeters, that does not mean that she's gonna have 9 millimeters all over her inner corner. So that is just going to be on the top layer, and we are going to place some spikes, but they're not necessarily going to be closed spikes with Bonder. We're just going to grab them like a normal wet lash fan and place it on her lash. And what I love about wet sets, they're just a one-on-one application. It does not take much method. As long as you know how to lash a classic set, you'll be able to do this with ease. So I'm gonna go ahead and place a photo of the mapping that we should do on Angela today, but I like to use this as a little blueprint. I do not like to use this as an actual mapping that we're going to do, because once I'm doing her, if I don't like certain lengths, we can go ahead and change that. Anything we write down is not permanent. I have full control over here, so whatever I don't like, we can go ahead and change. That's why I tell girls, do not stress when you're doing a set. It is totally like up to you with creative control. If something doesn't work, we can go ahead and just take it off and try a different length. Okay, are you ready?
I'm so excited. Let's
Okay.
do it.
Let's do that. So this is everything that you would need to lash. Right here, we actually have my two favorite tweezers. We have the microfiber J-Curve Gripopotamus, and we also have the microfiber Gripopotamus Slim Boot Tweezer. And I love these tweezers because I feel like the tip and the precision are so perfect. We also have the two types of eye pads from Lost Artistry, and we will be using them to lash in layers today. So I first like to start my service off with shaking my glue, and I also like to open up my Freshie and have it sitting on my lash cart. So here's a lovely zoomed in photo of my client, and we're gonna go ahead and place 3 dots on her eye, and they're all gonna serve a different purpose. So the first one is going to be where her highest point of the eye is, and the second one is where her eye starts to descend a little bit, and the third is where we want to place the longest length. This makes it so simple now to just go ahead and place my longest length where I need it to be, and I can drop down at the end of her eye because I know we're not going for a full-on cat eye map. We're going to do a modified squirrel eye mapping. So I know I want to start lifting with a 12 millimeter, so I give that 15 an extra emphasis. We put our transitional lengths, and then we can go ahead and put our 12, and I think 11s would be perfect in the middle, and we're going to go ahead and put 10s right next to it, and 9s, and a little bit of an 8 millimeter. Now for our bottom layer, we're going to go ahead and subtract 2 millimeters from all of the top layer lengths, and we're just going to go ahead and place all of these shorter lengths for the base on our mapping so we know what to do. We also have to remember we can tweak anything we want during the set while we lash, because this is our little rough draft on where we want the lengths to sit. Hence why I drew out a little outline. The first step of any lash service is to cleanse. So we're going to go ahead and take our foam lash cleanser and put that all around the eye. And that clearly was not enough, so we want to make sure that we have a good amount of shampoo on our eye and thoroughly cleansing the lashes. We also have to wash the top of her eyelid and the bottom of her eye to ensure whenever we stick on the gel under eye pads, they're going to stick. Now we have to rinse and pat dry, and then we can brush and fan out all of the lashes. Before I tape my client down, I love to put the dots on her eyelid, so then when her eyes are closed, I know exactly where I need to start lifting and where my longest length should sit. For placing the under eye patches, we want to have our client look up at us so we can go ahead and cover those bottom eyelashes. Also, make sure that you use tape even if you covered all of the eyelashes, because these under eye gel pads tend to slide down during the service. Now we want to take 2 micro swabs and gently sweep the lashes from the base to the tip and apply some primer. Before we dive into the set, let's talk about what wet sets aren't. These spikes are not made up with any type of open fan or bonder. They're actually fully closed fans with no product at the tips, which gives them that soft, fluffy finish at the top instead of a wet or shiny look. That's exactly how we're going to create this airy, textured effect that still holds structure. When it comes to placement, we're focusing our spikes mainly on the top layer of the lashes, with a few placed on the middle layer to add some dimension. But that's mainly going to be in the middle section of our eye, but we'll get into that later. Keep in mind, anything that we're going to place on the top layers are really going to be showing. So we have to make sure the direction is correct, and we also have to make sure that it's not holding too much weight on her natural lash. Isolation is totally up to you, whatever's comfortable, and every lash is different, so you might need multiple methods during the set. But the one thing we have to make sure is consistent is making sure that we're placing extensions 0.05 millimeters away from her skin. Since we're not sitting here making open fans, it's kind of tricky to know how much you're grabbing, so you want to kind of estimate how much you're grabbing each time and make sure that it's consistent. But what I mean by being consistent is making sure that we're following the appropriate lengths and weight that our client's natural lashes can hold. You might also be thinking, why hasn't this crazy girl wrote down the mappings on the under eye pad? But because I placed all of the dots on her eyelid, I can easily see where I need to start lifting and where the longest length would be. The spikes are going to be the backbone of this set, so we really want to make sure we do not rush this part. Take your time placing each spike exactly where you want it, but we don't want it to look too perfect. We want it to look balanced, but we also want it to look a little bit messy. The wispy texture is what makes the set look good. We do not want everything to look so perfect, so trust the process. It's all going to come together. Once you're satisfied with the placement of all the spikes, which means they're sitting exactly where they need to be and they're giving the look that we're going for, this is when we can comfortably move on to the next step of the set, which is the base. To do this, we're going to gently lift the entire top layer up and out of our way. I usually do this using an under eye pad by just tucking it slightly over the top layer lashes and holding them up to expose the whole bottom layer. You can also use tape if that works better for you, but the under eye patches from Lash Artistry have such a strong hold. Once the top layer is fully lifted, we'll have a clear view of the middle and bottom layers underneath. This is where we're going to build the base of the set using shorter lengths, 2 millimeters shorter than the spikes. Sometimes it's really hard to get every single natural lash isolated and open with the under eye pad, but we can easily work in sections, so we are only going to lash what we can see. Since we're working with a mixture of lengths to build out that base, especially in the middle and bottom layers, it's actually really helpful to write down your mappings as you go. You're not just placing lashes randomly, you're strategically layering different lengths, and that's what creates the dimension in this set. For example, if you use a 9 millimeters on the bottom layer and 10 millimeters on the middle layer, it's going to give you a soft lift and a more of a natural gradient look from the bottom to the top. But if you flip that and put 10 millimeters on the bottom and 9 on the middle, it actually changes the whole structure. It can make the set appear flatter or give a heavier look towards the base, which can throw off that airy effect if we're going for a wispy wet set. This is why it's so important to plan everything ahead and write things down, especially when you get into your inner and outer corner sections. We must keep in mind that the middle of the eye will definitely have more layers than the outer and inner corners, no matter who the client is. That's why it's so important to write things down, just so we don't get messy, because there are a lot of things to consider when doing any type of lash set. For example, if I use the same dimensions throughout the whole entire eye, it will not be even. And that is because the inner and outer corners do not have as many lashes and layers as the middle section of the eye. Inner and outer corners tend to have 1 to 2 layers. Meanwhile, the middle of the eye tends to have 3 to 6 layers. So we must keep this in mind when making the set even. Lashing in layers is one of my favorite ways to work because it speeds everything up. Since the top layer is already lifted and out of the way, all of the lashes underneath are already separated for me.
so I do not have to sit here and isolate every single lash the same way that I would do if I was working through all of the layers at once. Everything is super visible and accessible, so now I can move fast and get really clean placement, especially with my fast drying glue time. Now I don't have to wait around for them to dry, and I just have enough time to adjust them if I need to tweak the angle just a little bit. This combo, working in layers and using a fast curing adhesive, lets me lash quickly and efficiently while keeping the set clean and structured. This is also the time to check your work, look for any stickies, and make sure that all the extensions are sitting properly on the natural lashes. This is just the time to make sure that nothing is out of place. I always recommend checking your work in the mirror as well. Sometimes a quick front view helps you catch anything that you might have missed from your usual angles. If you can see any small gaps or missed lashes, go ahead and fill them in now. Another thing to note, there's no need for excessive brushing when you're building on the set, especially early on. We do not want to start brushing everywhere before we even built some structure. I actually did not brush through this set until I had fully finished the section that I was working on. This way, I was not disturbing the direction or pulling on any of the lashes that were still setting. Now, before you let your client go, we're going to gently check the bottom of the under eye pads and make sure that nothing got stuck to them during the process. Once everything is clean and good to go, I like to finish by applying Superbonder to lock everything in and give her a fan to dry and cool off, and just like that, she's all set.